I wanted to point out this house behind me here. Now, I talked about the old one from 1757, but this one was actually built in the 1880s. It was very unusual for anything new, particularly of this stature, to be built in Charleston after the Civil War. Remember I mentioned before about some of the wealthy folks who invested all the money and who lost it during the Civil War. But there's one fella, at least one, but this was the one I know about. His name was George Williams, and he was a self-made man. He had come to Charleston at the age of 16 from Augusta, Georgia. He had gotten into the shipping industry, which was your ticket to fame and fortune. If you got into shipping in Charleston, that really did the trick, because there was so much trade back and forth to England. But in any event, he was not so sure he was going to invest in a successful car. So what he did was, come on, make over that all silver and into British pounds. That way, whichever side won, he was going to be financially solvent. So when the war ended, guess who still had all his money? It was George Williams. He built this house 2 decades after. Now, behind y'all, if I could have everybody just turn around, this is a marker paying tribute to the men of the hunt. Y'all hear me? You back to it? That's because the Hunley that we saw at Charleston. The Hunley was somewhere. But if you look really simple about the success, the Union had been trying to push the take over Charleston but they figured if they could not get into Charleston, they were going to prevent anybody from coming out. And they were going to blockade the harbor, stop the flow of goods, commerce flowing in and out of the city, and that was going to be that, and the city would fold and come begging for the Union to come in at that point. Well, the Confederates didn't quite, that didn't work. The blockade, we always had folks like Rhett Butler. And believe it or not, he was not a real live character, but there were folks like Rhett Butler, many of them, who were involved in blockade running. But the Confederacy really needed to come up with a secret weapon to get the blockade to just back off. So what they did was they had a small submarine built. It was about 40 feet long, only 5 feet wide, 5 feet in diameter. They put 8 men in it. These 8 men sat on a big connection on another that turned a crank that made the propeller at the end of it. In the front of the boat, the bow of the ship, of this little submarine, there was a spar, a big rod with a torpedo on the end of it. And the idea was this little submarine would go upside of a wooden ship, jam a hole in the side with the spar, and stick the torpedo in it, back away, pull a rope, and cause an explosion to occur. It worked, but it only worked once, because the Hunley disappeared after that happened. It did bring down the Housatonic. So it was the very first successful submarine in U.S. naval history. Very first submarine successfully sink a ship. However, the Hunley, as I said, disappeared. Finally, 136 years later, the Hunley was discovered about 8 miles outside the harbor, sitting in tons of silt. They were able to excavate this little submarine. They found all 8 men sitting inside of their duty stations, skeletal remains. There was no scramble for these men to get out of the boat. So what they're thinking is when the submarine, after it was successful in its deployment, when it backed away, it closed the hatches, submerged, and they only took down with them whatever oxygen there was in the boat at the time. They had no way of bringing in new oxygen. So they had a candle that they would, of course, use for light, but also that was their canary in the coal mine. Once that thing burnt out, they knew they were out of oxygen. What probably happened is they ran out of oxygen and went into the bird, because they stayed down for too long, and they all fell asleep, and the ship never came up, and they died. But they did have a big memorial service for them here. They brought all the men to the cemetery where a lot of Confederate dead are buried in the northern section of the city. But this marker, you see when this was erected was in 1899. There was a big Confederate Veterans reunion here that year, and that's where this marker is. Okay, so that's your